Right, today we're doing lesson 2-2, estimating sums and differences for the Solve and Share an amusement park ride. Oh, and by the way, our I can statement is I can estimate sums and differences of decimals. The Solve and Share an amusement park has two roller coasters. One is 628 feet long and the other is 485 feet long. If you ride both roller coasters, about how much feet would you travel in all? Used estimation to solve. So we're going to we did mental math last time, and now we're going to be doing some estimation. So let's see what we got here. 628 feet and 485 feet. About how many feet will you travel in all is an addition problem. And we have to be careful because we're going to be doing sums and differences today. So sometimes we'll be adding, sometimes we'll be subtracting. So be careful. About how many feet will you travel in all? So for estimation purposes, it's not really telling you what place value you need to estimate to. So I will go with the largest place value on this one. 628 rounds to 600. It's closer to 600 than it is to 700. 485 rounds to 500. It's closer to 500 than it is to 400. And we add that together, we wind up with 1100. So that's one way to get an answer. If you want to use compensation, which is something we'll be talking about, we can actually get an exact answer with this. If we do some mental math strategies. So let's take a look at what that looks like. So if we add 600 and 400, I have 1,000. If we add, I know that's weird. I'm going in the wrong direction, aren't I? 600 and 400 is 1,000. 80 plus 20 is 100. 8 plus 5 is 12. So I can actually wind up with an exact answer on this one. How tricky is that? So I can actually get my exact answer by using some mental math strategies. And in that case, I didn't even round. But if you're asked to round, you should be rounding. I can also use compensation and try to, instead of rounding to the largest place value, I can scoot it down maybe and round. Instead of to the largest place value, I'm going to round to the tens. So 628 rounds to 630. And 600 or 485 rounds to 490. And when I'm rounding these up, I get 1120. So if you take a look at when I round to the largest place value and when I round to the tens place, there's not a whole lot difference. And here's my actual answer. So you can see both of them are good rounding answers. And this is what we call using rounding place value to help us get closer to the actual answer. So let's see what we got. There's a lot of different ways you could solve that. You don't want to get too large. You don't want to say 1,000 plus 1,000 is 2,000. That's going way off. When you round, you want to get as close to the actual answer as you can. You want to have a logical answer. About how much longer is one roller coaster than the other? So in this case, we're doing, instead of addition, we're doing subtraction. So we have 628 minus 485. We're doing some subtraction here, and it says about. So let's say we try, if we stay with our whole numbers to the largest place value, and we're subtracting, we can say there's about 100 feet difference. And that's perfect. It's a good quick answer. All right, and by the way, our estimate there, is it an overestimate or an underestimate? We'll be talking about that too, if you remember that from last year. So how can you estimate sums? And remember, this is the same activity that's shown in the student video through Savvas. Students are collecting dog food to give to an animal shelter. Estimate how many pounds were collected in weeks 3 and 4. So let's see what what we're talking about here. We want weeks 3 and 4. And you'll notice in 5th grade, they always love to put a lot of extra information in word problems that you don't need. They're trying to catch you. So we really didn't care about week 1, 2, and 5 here. There's more than one way to find the answer. So we're focusing on week 3 and 4. Keep that in mind as I move my page up. One way is, let me get that on there, round to the nearest hundred. So we're rounding to the largest place value, which is in the hundreds place, and we did that on the previous page. That's one way. Another way is using compatible numbers. So compatible numbers is trying to rename these values to get them closer to numbers that we can add in our head. So it's not rounding. Rounding is using the rounding rules. Compatible numbers is a substitution rule. It's substituting numbers, and it's okay if it's a little higher, if it's a little lower. It's just we're trying to get as close as we can to the actual answer. So 237.5, if you rounded that, it would be down to 200, but it's pretty close to 250. So in this case, we're going to actually bump that up a little bit to the nearest tens place. Actually, even a little higher than that, because we want to be able to add these values mentally. For that one, I probably would just go with 240. And for 345, I would go with 350. And I would get 590 on that one. But in this example, they decided to go with 250 and 350 to get 600. But anything near that is a good estimated answer. And you can see it's much closer than our old school rounding, which is what you do in the younger grades. In 5th grade, I always say it's like rounding on steroids when you're doing the substituting compatible numbers. You want to try to rename the number as close as possible to the actual number so you can work with it and get your answer as close as possible to the actual answer. So let's just, for fun, let's see how much our actual answer is here. So when we're going to add 5 plus 1 is 6. 7, put our decimal there. 7 plus 5 is 12, carry the 1. 4 plus 3 plus 1 is 8. And 3 plus 2 is 5. So our actual number is 582.6. So you can see these two rounded with compatible number answers are way closer to the actual answer than our old school rounding that we did in the younger grades. Rounding's okay, but we want to try to move closer to using compatible numbers. But either way is going to give you a rounded answer. So let's move on. Tomas said we did great in week 4. We collected just about twice as many pounds as in week 1. Use estimation to see if he was right. Did they use twice as many in week 2 as they did in week 1? 2 and 1? Well, if you rounded week 2 to 300, week 1 would round to about 100. So I don't think that is actually a good answer. But that's odd. Oh, I'm on the wrong page. Okay. Yeah. So that is, I wouldn't say that's correct. So, yeah, I wouldn't. Actually, the book says yes, it is, but I would disagree with that. I had the wrong weeks. We did great in week 4 and week 1. There we go. So 172 and 345. Let me check that again. 172.3 and 345.1. So if I rounded that to about 200, I don't know if I would even agree with him again. And we round this value to 300. Yeah. We collected just about twice as many. I don't really think so. But I guess that's an okay statement because I don't really like it. I would say no, but you might argue with me and say yes. So, and then the top of the page, Another example, you can estimate differences, round each number to the nearest whole number, and you can estimate a difference that way. Another way is using compatible numbers. So in this case, we're rounding possibly to some benchmarking number, some number that you can add in your head very easily. So in this case, they decided to round 22.8 to 25 and 13.9 to 15, and either way is fine. And the guided practice in the example above, which estimate is closer to the actual difference, and how can you tell without subtracting? I would say this is probably closer to the actual distance, the first one way, because you didn't change the numbers that dramatically. The numbers are closer to the original numbers. And the compatible numbers, you overestimated or rounded here, and you over rounded here. So I would say this one's closer. And number two, in the example on page 66, the students collected more pounds of dog food in week 4 than in week 3. Estimate how much, how do you know how much more? So between week 4 and week 3, let me go back to the other page. Week 4 was 345.1, and week 3 was 237.5. So this is week 3, and this was week 4. Make sure I got the right weeks this time. And estimate how many pounds more. The difference between 237.5 and 245.1, yeah, I'd say it's about 100. Estimated to be about 100 pounds. So if you wrote that on top of each other in place value order, or we could just actually look at it this way, you're going to see that there's 100 in the hundreds place, there's 100 difference, and these guys are really close to each other. So it's another way of you kind of using rounding and compatible numbers to estimate. So now we're going to move on to do you know how? Estimate the sums and differences. So let's see what we got over here. 49 plus 22.88. All right, we're trying to find our actual numbers here or our estimates. We want estimates. So let's say we have, I could probably make that a 50 and maybe make that a 23, and we're adding. So I'd go with 73 on that, get you pretty close. If you wanted to, I went up here and I went up here, so I know my estimate is going to be a little overestimate. But 72 if you wanted to keep that at 49 plus 23, or 50 plus 22 and make 72. That's fine. Number 4, remember, you're going to have to be close. You don't have to be exactly what I have here, but you have to be close. So let's see what I want to do for this one. 86.9 minus 18. Well, if I make that an 8 minus 18, I can do that in my head because I know 8 minus 8 is 0, and 8 take away 1 is 7. That's a way to be able to do that in your head. You notice I rounded this value up and I kept this one the same. If there's any way possible for you to keep one value the same, try to do that. And it doesn't always work, but you get you closer to the correct answer. So for number 5, I think I'm going to go with, let me get that out of there. For number 5, I think I'll go with the 180. I definitely don't like 179. That's tricky to work with. And for the 277.1, let's see, what do I want to go with for that? I could even go to 200 plus 300 equals 500. That will get me an old school rounded answer. But if I go from 180 plus maybe 280, I would get a 460 as an answer. But anything near that is fine. 23.2 minus 9.71. Anytime you have an answer close to a multiple of 10, just keep that. So I could say 23.2 minus 1, because remember 9.71 rounds to 1. So now I have 22.1. That one's kind of easy to do in your head. You're trying to do this as mentally, as you can. For number 7, 23.8 minus 4.7. Well, if I round that to 25 minus 5 equals 20. I could do 24 minus 4 equals 20. Anything near that, so your answer's 20. We're looking for estimated answers, not actual answers. So let's see, for number, I think I'm going to keep 87, and I'm just going to drop that 0.9 and make 3. Why did I do that? Because 9 plus 3 equals 10, and that will get me able to do that in my head, estimate in my head. 38.9, I'll bring that to 40, minus 20 equals 20. Anything close to 20 works. 576 plus 94, I'll say 600 plus, how about if I just leave that one alone? Make it 95. 695. You could also make that 100, so you could wind up with 700. Anything close that you can try to do in your head, if at all possible. So there you go, 2-1.